Hilchis Shegagos Perek Chamishi. So B'hamshach we learned in Perek Daled that if you do many Averas together, and even though in the middle you didn't realize you did an Avera, but it was M'shemes Harbe, so therefore you're chayiv on each one. You could even do the same act, and if there's Kama Averas in that same act, and as long as it's either Isur Basachas or Isur Mesev, Isur Kelul, so you're chayiv al Kolachas Vachas. That's when you talk about you're doing different shemas, different Averas. Mashenkin, if you do the same Avera and you repeat the same Avera more than once, so as long as it was Behel Machas, it was only in one forgetting, so then you're chayiv achatas achas. That's the Yisei Advarim. However, we're going to learn that if it's Gufin Mechulakim, in other words, the same Avera, but it was done with different people, there's the Isser Nida, but it was done with different Nidas, or Isser Achese, and it was done with different Achis, so then you're chayiv al kol guf v'guf. In other words, normally the din is, if you do the same Avera, Behel Mechad, you only chayiv once. But then by our eyes, there's a din that if it's guf and muchulakim, so then you chayiv on each guf separately. Perek Chamishi. Haboal erva bias harbe b'halamachas. The person was ba bias harbe, but it was all b'halamachas. Is afal pi shehoya ben bilu bilu yom harbe. A behel v'linedel b'intayim. Since he wasn't aware that he did the avera, and also b'arehi guf echad, we're talking about the same erva, the same shem, and the same person. So therefore, so hariakil shgoga achas, it's all part of one shgoga. Ve'ini chayiv alachatas achas, and you only chayiv one chatas. Aval im shogeg bo. V'achar kach nedele, he realized that he did the avera, and then v'chazu v'shogeg bo atzma, the same woman he was shogeg bo atzma u'ba'olah, and then again v'achar kach nedele, and v'chazu v'shogeg bo atzma u'ba'olah. See, he repeated it kama pa'amim, but in the middle he knew about it, and then again he forgot. So then it's chayiv al kol bilu bia. Shahidiyah is machalkas Shegagos, because since in the middle he found out about it, so therefore it's a new shegig. So bekitzer, if the person does the same avera with the same woman, the same and without neder being time, he does it many times, so he's only chayiv once. Mashenkin, if there was a yediyah being time, so then even though it's the same avera and it's the same woman, but nevertheless yediyah is machalkas and mele is chayiv al kol pamu pam. Halacha beis. Now, there could be the bail and the novellas. So the din is that one is not totally in the other. One could be have yediyas harbe, even though the other one is helamachas, or vice versa. It's not negeh. Halacha beis. Haboal erva biyas harbe behelamachas. V'zuah novellas hitaka was only behelamachas, but v'zuah novellas hoysel yediyah ben kol biyobiyah. By her it was also a shegig. But by her there was a idea ben bi'ol shenimtzu abiyas etzlo ba'lo misarbe. So the din is who may be chatas achas, because by him it's a helam echad. Vehi mevia chatas al kol bi'ol, and she brings by her is kama lamas. So therefore she brings a chatas for each bia. Knows what happens with him, what happens with her is not dependent on each other. Al der is a fakert who hoyel idea is bintayim, and vehi behelam achas. So then is who may be chatois harbe, because by him there was halamas harbe. And vihi mevia chatas achas, and by her there was elam achas, and Mamela she only brings one chatas. Halacha gimel. Habo al arayis harbe behelam achas. Afal pi shekulam mishem echad, aber heil v'hen gufim muchulakim is also chayav al kolachas v'achas. So here we're learning out, even though there's a din of the halamis mechalkes, in other words, if it was the yediyas mechalkes rather, in other words, if it wasn't behelam achas, it was yediyas mechalkes, so then you chayav al kolachas v'achas. And now we're learning also gufin mechalkin, that if it's separate gufin, it's also mechulakim. Ketzad. Harei sheboal chomish noshav nidis. Ei sheboal chomish achyesav. Ei al chomish b'nesav behelamachas. Is chayiv al kol guf v'guf. And over here, even though it was, there could be a hechatimsa where he didn't know on each one she was a nida. So then you would be chayiv, then the taka separate halamas. Those separate forgettings. Mashenkin, even if he forgot the pashtus, even if he forgot, didn't know the isur nida, nevertheless, since he's chayiv al kol guf v'guf, mikanat olamet, shezeh she'omru chacham, haboala zocher, v'hevi zocher ola behelam achas, chayiv chatas achas, which the Ram brought it in previous period, is b'medvar mamurim kshehoya isa zocher atzmi. The chiddush over there is that there's the isur of the boil, and this by a boil of the zocher, and there's also the nivel of the shechiv and the mushkaf. So the chiddush is that the shechiv and the mishkav is shem echot. And therefore, even though he was a Baal Zocher and the Zocher was Ba'alav, so it's not considered like he did two separate Isurim, but it's rather he did the same Isser twice. He did the same Isser twice. But that's only by Medvar Mamurim if it's the same Zocher. So with the same Zocher, he was Ba of that Zocher, and that Zocher was Ba'olov. So then he's Chayiv only once. Masha'enkin, if there was two Scharim, so maybe it was two separate Scharim, there was one Zocher that was Ba'olov, and there was another Zocher that was Ba'olov, so then he's Chayiv too, even if there would be two Scharim which were Ba'olov. In other words, they did the same act. So there would also be Chayiv too. So that was there. If he was the fact that he was a Sheikh and a Mushkav is not going to make it into one. B'medvar mamurim kshoy ois zocher atzmi, aval hoy zocher acher. Ben shebal shnayim, ben shebal zeh ve'evi zeh olav, is always chayiv al kol guf v'guf. V'hu adin bebal behema, ve'evi behema olav. So again, so we said over there also that it's only chayiv achas, but b'medvar mamurim when we're dealing with the same behema, if the same behema that he was bala behema and that behema was ba'olav, so then he's only chayiv one. Masha'enkin, if there were two behemoths, one behema he was a ba'olav, and the other behema was the behema was ba'olav, so then he would be chayiv shtayim. Halacha dalet. The same thing. Hoisha shevi olah behemas harbe behelam achas. So again, chayeves chatas al kol behema u'mehema. Why? Shaharei gufim mechulakim. So each behema is a separate guf. So therefore, she's chayiv chatas for each behema. Barezu kimishanivu lo lanoshim harbe behelam achas. Which again, she chayeves chatas al kol ishviyish. So again, what we're learning over here is that there's a din of yediyas machalkis. Whereas if a person does the same avera more than once, but in the middle he realized that he did the avera, so then he's chayiv for the next time he does the avera. That's called yediyas machalkis. And then there's another din that gufin machalkim, that even though it's the same avera, but it was done with two separate gufim, so that's also machalkim. Halacha hey, ha'isha sheholav bailalim dinas hayam v'shama shemes. She heard that she died. She heard from someone that she died. And really, she shouldn't have gotten married because l'chatchila, when she just hears that he died, even she heard from an eidachot, l'chatchila tishbiya hiraz bez. But l'bil she got married. Eisha bo edim shemes, and v'nisas ben al pi atzma ben al pi bez. The pil she got married. Either Bezdin told her she's allowed to get married, or she got married based on the fact that it was an eidachot came and she assumed that he died. And l'pil later is v'noida shebai l'kain. We know the by l'kain. So chayav is karb nechad because she was an Eishes ish that lived with someone b'shegig. V'im nisas la'anoshim harbe. If she got married more than once, Eisha zinsa im anoshim harbe. So then chayves chatas al kol ishveish because shein guf mechulakim. V'afal pi shakel b'shgog achas. Even though everything is coming b'shgog achas, basically, because she thought that he died. Everything is based on the fact that she thought he died. But nevertheless, lepel since she lived with guf mechulakim, she's chayiv al kol guf. That's the din. Now habol anida b'shgoga. And then v'tara mini dasa v'tavla, she became tahira, and then v'chazr v'rasa nida, and then ubala pam shniya ba'isish gog atzmi. Let's say he didn't realize that there's a isur nida. He didn't realize there was an isur nida, and he was baal ala nida, and this same nida became tahira, and then she became a nida again. So the din is, even though she's the same person, but nevertheless chayiv al kol pam upam afal pishu behelam echad vehu guf echad. So l'chura, why should she be chayiv twice? Because shizman nidazu chutz mizman nidas hashenis varein kishtei noshim nidas. So just like by shtei noshim, if there would be mamish shtei noshim nidas, so it'd be chayiv shtayim. So over here you have the same woman. So if in the same nidas he was ba'al more than once, it would be chayiv achas. But since this woman that's a nida became uis nida, so now it's kilo. Now she became a nida again. So it's kilo a new woman. No, she became a nida and then she was uis nida and now she's a nida again. So memela. So therefore there's the din that. That's considered two gufim, and memela gufim mechalkim, and therefore he has to bring two chatos. Halacha vov. Haboal ishtei shalei b'shas vesta, and v'ras dam b'shas tashmish. So over here is a reilu p'tur mikar mechatos. Why? B'pnei shezeka onus v'lei shegig. Onus v'lei shegig. There was nothing wrong that he did. He was boal shalei b'shas vesta, and lepel she was ras dam. So memela that's considered an onus, and it's not a shegig. Because Hashegig hoyeli lived dekoladaktik. The type of a shegig means he made a mistake, but he should have been beidik, he should have been medaktik and realized. And the ilu bodik yafa v'diktik b'shailis layoyibol l'dishgog. It's all coming because he wasn't makbid. He could have found out more, and he didn't find out more. L'fishli tarach b'drishul chkira v'achar kach yasa tzarach kapara. Therefore, he needs a kapara. Avol zeh, this person that was baal ishtei shlei b'shas vestei, Malo leilasis hariteira hoisa v'lei b'shas vesta baal, is ein zel eines. So it's not. It's only an eines. So lefichach bein shnimtze dam al eit shelo. If there was dam al eit shelo, which means that she was beidik and she found dam, and so we'll soon see that it's not like 100% that he was bal anida, because could be she became a nida after he was pirish, because it was eit shelo. And bein shnimtze al eit shalei, which obviously he was bail anida because lepel there was dam al eit shalei. So that obviously proves that, that's 100% that when he was bifnim, so there was dam, is pturim. It's a never potter. Why? Because it was something that was not a shegig, it was an oinus. When a person was baal ishtei shalei b'shas vesta, that's not considered a shegig, that's called an oinus. A shegig is something which if he would have been mevarer, he should have been mevarer, and the fact that he wasn't mevarer is tzorich kapar. Mashiach over here, there's not shaykhs to say he should have been mevarer. She was shalei b'shas vesta, and there was no reason that he should assume that she's a nida. Avolim over, u'bo'oleh samach levesta. Now the din is you're not allowed to be bail samach levesta also. There's a special din, you're not allowed to be bail samach levesta. And lepel, he was eva and he was bo'oleh samach levesta. V'dima, sheyivel, v'yifresh kedim shetiridam. He knows that it's samach levesta. But on the other, in his mind, he figured he'll be able to be bail and be perish. And lepel v'rasa b'shas atashmish. So then it's chayav b'karban. Then he is chayav b'karban. He's not amazing because he didn't want to. She wasn't a nida yet, and he was assuming that he'll be able to be perish before she becomes a nida. But on the other hand, he's certainly not an anus. He shouldn't have been bail. Samach leveset. So therefore, chayav b'karban shezu ishgaga lefichach im nimtza dam al eit shalei. So Memela, we know for sure that there was dam b'shas tashmas, b'shas tashmas. Is first of all shneim tmeim. That he's certainly she's tummy al nida, it's partial, but he's also tummy al a bail nida because he was definitely a bail nida, and also the chayav b'karban they would definitely bail a nida. However, nimtza al eit shelo, if they found the dam al eit shelo, now we have to know whether there was dam b'shas tashmas. It depends. Im kin chatzma miyad k'shepirish habal mamish miyad. When Pirish Habal, she was Mekaneh Chatzma and Velishah, so there was no waiting. As soon as he was Pirish, she was Badak, Kin Chatzma, Ishneim Tmei, and V'chayav Mekarban. We know with certainty that there was already Dam B'shas Tashmish, and Memela, they're both Tomei. She's Tomei, obviously, and he's also Tomei Al Sabel Nida, and also they're both Chayav Karban, because we assume with certainty that they were a Bail Nida. However, V'im Shasa, if she waited, for her to put her hand under the pillow or under the blanket, and the title aid that she should take something livdik beit to be beidik, and v'acharkach kin chatzmo. So then it's not 100% that there was dam de b'shas tashmish. So therefore shneim tmeim b'sofik. It's only a sofik if they're both tummy. She's obviously tummy, but there's only a sofik whether he's tummy, whether he was takabel nida. And also Pturim Mikarbon, and they're both Patim Mikarbon, because since we don't really know that she was a Nida B'Shas B'Hila, so therefore they're not Chayav HaKarbon. The Im Shasa, Kedei Shetered Min Amita, and then the Tadiach is Panah, Tadiach Panah means Panah Shalmata, so they waited that long. There's a case where she was Beidik Miyat, there's a case where she was taught Shasa, Kedei Sheteshet Yodel, Tachas Akar Vakeset, and then she took an Eid Livdik Base. So that took a little bit of time, but not that much time. Now she waited enough time that she should get off Teirid Ben Amita, and then v'tadech is paneh, and v'acharkach kin cha'atzma, and lepel she was kin cha'atzma after there was the amount of time that Teirid Ben Amita and v'tadech is paneh, and now after that amount of time she went ahead and she was mekaneh cha'atzma v'nimtza dam. So then is bailator. That's then bailator. Then we say she's tamei because she saw dam, but lepel a bailator, and certainly that there's no Indian of bringing a carbon. Now this din, that there's a difference if he was Ba'ala Shalei B'Shas Vesta and he's called an Oinus, or he's Ba'ala Samach Vesta and therefore he's called a Shegig. So the Maggid Mishnah says in the Isuri Bia that the Isur of being Ba'al Alishte Samach Vesta is only Isur D'Rabbanan. So the question is, Alapil over here we're coming out on the Raisadika level, whether he's Chayiv HaKarbon. If he was Ba'ala Shalei B'Shas Vesta, so he's Chayiv HaKarbon. If he was Ba'ala Samach Levesta, he's not Chayiv HaKarbon because he's an Onus. But if he was Ba'ala Samach Levesta, so then he's Chayiv HaKarbon. Now the Lashon HaRam is in Ovar Ba'ala Samach Levesta, V'dima, that he'll be able to be Ba'al and Perish, so then he's not considered an Enes, he's considered a Shegig. So the question is the reason why he's considered a sheikh is because he was over, and knows the Issa Rabbanan, which created that now it's not an oinus anymore, it's a sheikh, and as a result of that he's chayiv a carbon. So it comes out that the Issa Rabbanan is changing legabi the chi of carbon, or no, or the pshat is because since it's samuch leveset, so he himself should have understood that it's this possibility that he won't be able to be boiled without her becoming a nida, and therefore he himself should have been chayshish. So even though on a Teradika level, it's taken not a chash, it's not a chash, but lepel, if he did it, and lepel it happened, so therefore he's not considered an oinus, he's called a shegig. Al derech, there's l'mashal, and that's also megil. L'mashal, there's dinim that if a woman l'mashal got married al pi bezin, which is really bemis not so easy to understand. First, a woman got married al pi bezin, and lepel later on it was ba baila. So now we're saying that she's mechuyev to bring a carbon because she got married and she was an Ishes Zitza. But L'churish, it was Al Pi Bezin, Mahaya Lo Lases. And nevertheless, we're calling her a Shegig. So it's not the pshat is that when there's someone doing something that's mutter, it's 100% that it's called oinus. So it could be, you could be doing something that's mutter, 100% mutter, there's no Israel Pitera, but on the other hand, you're not called a Shegig, because Haya Le Livdik, you should have been Beidik. So Al Derech Zeh, it's lav dafke, it's not muchrach to say that the reason why Samuch Levesta, I'm saying the Shmaitza says that. The Shmaitza says that the reason why there's a difference between Samuch Levesta and not Samuch Levesta is because when it's not Samuch Levesta, she was mutter. Mashenke by Samuch Levesta, it's Asim Midrabanan, and the Isim Midrabanan causes that she should be Chayiv a carbon. But I'm saying, you could, there's a mokum to think, maybe differently to think, that even the Pashtus, not Samuch Levesta, so there's no reason to be Chayshish, there's no Yisod to be Chayshish, and therefore she was 100% mutter, and therefore it's an einus. Mashenkin Samuch Levesta, besides the fact that there's the Issa D'Rabbanan, even if there wouldn't be an Issa D'Rabbanan, there's a reason to be Chayshish. And therefore a person should be Chayshish, and Mela, he shouldn't do it. He should, because he's afraid that maybe there'll be a nida. I'm saying, I l'churish is mutter. So yes, so we see it by the Isha Shisham Shemez Baila, or Isha that Bezdin was matter, for Desving she's potter, she's chayiv a carbon. Why? She's hayalo livdik. So you have to understand, Taka, what's the hayalo livdik? Bezdin was telling you're allowed to do it. But Lepel, we see that even if you're allowed to do it, it's still called a shegig. So Al is over here. I'll call upon Chur, it's not muchrach. Halacha Zayin. Mi sha'avar ubal samach leveset, al das shetigdim biyosei levias adam. So he did that, he shouldn't have done it, but he did it. And Lepel v'hirgisho isha shenitmis b'shas tashmish. During Tashmish, she feels that she was nitmis. V'amru le nitmesi, and she tells him nitmesi. So the din is hareza leyifresh kshu miskasha. K'mesha b'yanu b'hilchas yisurim b'ya. Because during kisha, if he's yoytza, so it's hanol leyitziyasa can be yossi, it's a din of a b'ya itself. So mele, he's not supposed to be yetza kshu miskasha. V'im liyoda she'asa lifresh miyad. Lepel, he didn't know that din. And mele upirish ksuhu miskasha. So he was yet pirish kshu miskasha. So chayav shtei chatois. So he's chayav shtei chatois. Achas al knisosi. Shari bol nida. He was bail samach levesta. Memela, since he was bail samach levesta, and lepel she was a nida. She was a nida. So memela, so he has a din. There's chayav achatas. That's what we said before. That's called a shegig. But what was the shegig? The shegig is that he thought he'll be able to be bail before she'll become a nida. And lepel she didn't. He wasn't matzliach in what he thought he'll be able to be matzliach. So it's achas al knisosi shari bol nida. And va'achas al yitziyah, he's also chayiv. There's another avera. The yitziyah was also avera. That he was yetzer. He was pirish kshu miskasha because she yitziyah ano lekibiyasi, and therefore he's chayiv two chatois. But medvar mamurim he's chayiv two chatois. Sai for the knis and sai for the yitziyah. Kshiyoda she'asa livil b'shas haveset. Whereas when he was bail, he knew bechlal that it's also livil b'shas haveset. But what was his mistake? His dima shetigdem biyasi l'riyasi. He thought that he'll be able to matzliach, even though it's aser, but he'll be able to matzliach to be bail kedem l'riyasa, and also and v'liyada she'asa lifresh miyad. Shenimtzu le'shtei alamas b'shtei abilas. There's two alamas. It's called two alamas. Why is it called two alamas? The first halam was he thought he'll be able to do it, and he wasn't able to do it. That was like a technical halam, a mitzvah halam. And the second one is a halachatik halam. He doesn't know that it's also lifresh b'shas kishui. He thought that he's allowed. He should be paid. Maybe he thought he's supposed to be paid miyad. And memela so lo yada she'asa lifresh miyad. So memela comes out shtei alamas Shtei halachos. Avalim leyoda she'asa livel b'shas havesed. He didn't bechlal know that there's an iser livel b'shas havesed. And also v'leyoda she'asa lifrish min hatumah miyad. So basically, he wasn't aware. He wasn't aware of the problem here. V'leyoda she'asa lifrish min hayad is aval pi she'pirish miyad v'hu miskasha. He was pirish while he was being miskasha. Ein chayav alachatas achas. Why? Mipnei sheknisose v'yitziyose she'en kishtei bilis is bishgoga achasein ubehelam achas asa akil. It was all bishgoga achas ubehelam achas. In other words, he wasn't aware of the halachas. He wasn't aware that he shouldn't have been bail in the first place, and he wasn't aware that you're not supposed to go out b'shas kisha, even though it's not really the same halacha. It's not really the same halacha. The first halacha is you're not allowed to be bail b'shas samach levesta. The second halacha is that you're not supposed to be yetze b'shas kisha. So l'chur is two separate halachas, but since they're both a helam, which is connected to halachas, it's considered a helam achas, and therefore he's chayiv only one. Masha'en kein, in the first case, where over there the first mistake wasn't a mistake in the halacha, but it was mitzeis and mitzias. In other words, in his assessment of the mitzias, he thought that he'll be able to be bail and be peidish. Masha'en kein, and he wasn't matzliach. And the second one was a mistake in the halacha, so therefore that's considered two halamas. Since it's called two halamas, so therefore he's chayiv shtayim. But who had din b'shararayis? This din applies also to shararayis. Shem shogag. U'bo'al erva al da shehi muteres. Evnei delei shehi erva b'hu b'teicha tashmish. Is leyifrish miyad sheyitziyasi anola ki b'yosef. However, v'im leyoda she'asa lifrish miyad u'pirish v'hu miskasha. And so l'churis, he made one mistake that he didn't know she was an erva, and now he made another mistake that he didn't know that it's asa lifrish while he's miskasha. But nevertheless, eini chayiv alachatas achas shakil shkoga achasi. So the nekudas halacha is that even though it's really l'chura two separate halamas, here he doesn't know that she's an erva, and here he doesn't know that she's that it's also lifrish she miskasha. But the two halacha dika mitzias. There's a mitzias in halacha. He doesn't know the halacha is that he's not allowed to be bola. He's not allowed to be bola. Either he doesn't know she's an erva, or he doesn't know that also lifrish. That's the halacha dika din. And then there's a mitzias dika thing. He made a mistake in assessing whether he'll be able to do it or not. So since these are two, when they're two separate types of halamas, so then you're chayiv shtayim. That's chiddush over here. Masha'enkin, if it's two halamas, so even though they're not really the same halam, but they're the same type of halam, the halach is that he's missing a yediyah, so B'meila he's missing a yediyah that she's an erve, he's missing a yediyah that it's also miskasha, he's missing a yediyah that also livel samach levesta, so B'meila, those yediyahs that are missing, so then therefore he's only chayiv chatas achas. So over here it seems like that the Isser knows, what we spoke about before, that the Isser knows why is he chayiv achatas. So the Ram seems to be saying over here that he say that varan is because he wasn't aware that it was that could be an issue. He wasn't aware that Asr Livel b'shas veset. In other words, that was the Isser. In other words, he went ahead and was bail. He wasn't aware that there's an Isser Livel samach levesta, and over here he wasn't aware that it's Asr Lifresh b'shosha miskasha. So the shegig is the mitzias is that he was bola b'shegig. He doesn't really have an excuse. The Ram seems to be saying that the Isser is the fact, Gibuit on the fact that Le Yoda She Isser, if this Isser is only Isser the Rabbanon, so why is that like the Yisrael of the Isser also? There's another dion over here. We learned that Yediyas Machalkes, that if a person did an Aveira, and he realized he did an Aveira, and then he goes ahead and does the same Aveira again, so then he's chayiv twice. So L'chur over here, during the Be'ilah, either he realized she's a Nida, or he realized she's an Erva, and that was during the Be'ilah. And then he went ahead, and then he was Yotza while he was Miskasha, which is another Maisa Be'ilah. So L'chur, there was two Maisa Be'ilahs, and also in the middle there was a Yediyah. So Ein Achinami, we're saying that this Halach in Rambam comes out of Chidush, that he's doing the same Aveira twice. And normally it's a Guf Echad, the same Aveira, and normally you only chayav once. But over here, since it's two type of halamas, the first halam was that he thought he'll be able to finish, and the second halam was he didn't know the halacha. So therefore, even though he's doing the same avera with the same guf twice, nevertheless he's only chayav He's doing one. He's chayiv one. I'm sorry. If he does this the same avera twice, even if it's the guf echad, and l'chura he didn't know in the middle that he did the avera, but nevertheless, since we're dealing with two types of forgetting, so therefore he's chayiv shtayim. That's the chiddush of the Rambam. Masha'inkin, if it's one helam, if it's considered one helam, he's only chayiv one. But l'chura over here, since in the middle during the bia, he was nedalei that she's a nida, or during the bia he was nedalei that she's an erva. So l'chura he had already a yediyah. If he has already a yediyah, so l'chura, so why isn't it yediyas machalkas? That's a kasha that the achreinim ask and different tirutzim. I mean, the Ersmech wants to say that since over here there was the same ma'aser, everything comes as a result of the original bia. If without the original bia, they wouldn't have been able to originally yitziyah. So Mimela is such a situation where the yitziyah is a hamshach to the original bia. So therefore, you don't say yediyas machalkas. You have to understand. But l'chura, that's the kasha. Why don't you say over here yediyas machalkas?